Let's now give you some updates from what is happening on the political front within the United States, where Joe Biden, interestingly, appears to have a very slender 1-point lead over former President Donald Trump in a national survey. So as the two head towards a likely rematch in November, the Reuters Ipsos poll found that Biden at this moment appears to be leading with 39% support amongst the registered voters compared to the former president's 38%. It's also important to note that Biden's lead was within the survey's 1.8 percentage point margin error. The one-week-long poll, which closed this Wednesday, also shows that 12% of its respondents said that they did not know as to how they would vote or whether they would even vote at all. While about 11% of the respondents said that they would back some other candidate instead of either Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Now, despite Biden and Trump setting up a sequel of the 2020 presidential rematch, the road ahead for both of them is not an easy one. Both candidates carry significant liabilities in the first U.S. presidential election rematch in nearly about 70 years. The voters are very concerned about the 81-year-old incumbent president's age and his mental faculties. Questions are being raised regularly about, can Joe Biden even run for the top job? There are deep reservations about his ability to assume the presidency for 4 more years. But for Donald Trump, it is his upcoming 4 criminal trials, including charges of trying to overturn his 2020 electoral defeat. With many voters not convinced by either Trump or Biden, the new poll also shows independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., backed by about 15% of the registered voters, should he appear as a third candidate on the ballot. Now, to give us more details on this interesting poll, we're being joined in by our correspondent Susan Terani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, we've seen a number of different polls that have given leads to either of these two candidates, but in this particular specific poll, which was taken from people who are registered voters in the United States, it appears that Joe Biden has a very slender 1-point lead over Donald Trump. The Biden camp would be pretty happy with this.
Yeah, they'll be pretty happy with this, even if it's in the error of margin, margin of error, as you mentioned, because after that State of the Union by President Biden, he was able to actually raise about $10 million. So, you know, we see these polls sort of going back and forth, as you mentioned, between the two candidates. But ultimately, you know how the system is here in the United States. What will happen is there's going to be a handful of states that will ultimately decide which way this election will sway. And if we're talking about those swing states, Donald Trump is leading by about 3 percentage points. We've got months to go to the election, but I think both sides are sort of claiming victory about being ahead right now in one way or the other. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see when Americans actually go to the poll and as we get closer to the election, then which way these numbers are swaying.
Absolutely indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Terani, for joining us from New York and getting us those details there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.